Hi there everybody, Jack here again at the Vinyl Voyage. So today's video is in celebration of my namesake Jack at Vinyl Martini, reaching 2 years in the vinyl community. That's him reached 2 years, posted 100 videos, an amazing achievement, and he's pushing forward towards 600 subs. So love to be a part of getting him there. Personally, I've never had a martini in my life, but if I'm going to have one, I'm going to have one the Jack Vinyl Martini way. And I believe that's with an onion instead of an olive, a gin martini. So next weekend I'm going to go for it. I'm going to make myself one. So we set a challenge then to give a shout out to 2 channels in the vinyl community, and also to show a selection of records from a band that you really enjoy, all the records in your collection. Okay, so the 2 shout outs that I'm going to give, I'm really new to the vinyl community. I've only been posting for just over a month, but both of the shout outs that I'm going to give have been probably the first 2 people to be really encouraging to me. Everybody's been massively encouraging in terms of all the videos that I've posted up. But when I did my first vinyl tag, I'm not an overly nervous person. I think I'm fairly confident, but when you do something new, it can always be a little bit daunting and you're not sure how it's going to be received or if people are going to get behind you. Both these people were very encouraging and really positive when I posted my first video, so I really appreciated that. And in subsequent videos, again, they've both been really positive and encouraging. Both of them have a very eclectic taste, which I really like, and also both of them are massively knowledgeable about music. So the first person I'd like to give a shout out to is Mike at Mike's Vinyl Spiral. Yeah, like I said, really eclectic taste, from punk to lo-fi indie to French music. And I liked it in his vinyl tag when he spoke about French music. It wasn't just the fact that he was passionate about French music, but how eclectic that was as well. Everything from French 60s yeye singers to Jane Birkin, Charlotte, I think he showed Charlotte Gainsborough, but lots and lots of stuff that I wasn't familiar with, to Nouvelle Vague, who I'm familiar with, but I've not heard a lot of their stuff. But yeah, really knowledgeable. I like the way he puts across his videos and gives you lots of background on the things he shows and doesn't just show them and move on. So yeah, big shout out to Mike at Mike's Vinyl Spiral. And secondly, a big shout out to Dale at Gatefold 33. Again, someone who seems really knowledgeable about music and has a really eclectic taste. Similar to myself, I think he's really into that kind of late 60s, early 70s period of music. Some of the records that he's shown, my jaw's almost at the ground when he's shown First Press Vertigo of Affinity, the amazing Linda Hoyle. I really love to get that myself. Other stuff like Jade Warrior, and I think he's got a Love of Island records, that classic island period. So yeah, again, massively knowledgeable about music, and I like that he gives you lots of background on the records and doesn't just flick them up and show you the records. So yeah, a big shout out to those 2 channels, and I'll put the channel links in my description when I post the video. Okay, so the other part then of the challenge was to show a group that you really enjoy and all the records that you have from that group. So the band that I'm going to show were formed in the late 1980s, around about 1989 in London, but they never really rose to prominence until 1992 when the now defunct British music newspaper, The Melody Maker, rather controversially put them on the front cover of one of their editions and proclaimed them the best new band in Britain. That band is, of course, have you got it yet? It was Suede. Okay, the supposed forefathers of Britpop. I know that they hated that tag, but you know, fantastic band. Really like Suede. When they came out in the early 90s, I didn't like them because I only really liked stuff from the late 60s to the early 70s, and my musical vision was very stovepiped. It was blinkered. But now, a number of years on, I really like Suede, and I've got a number of their albums. So without further ado then, I'm going to show their first album. So this is their self-titled debut, released in 1993. It's got some great songs on here. So Young, Animal Nitrate. In fact, that whole first side is absolutely brilliant. The Drowners first track on the second side is really, really good as well. But I think the front cover, it really, really sums Suede up. I think that kind of androgynous look, the two people kissing. If you look at the original photo that this was taken from, it was taken out of a book of lesbian photography. And if you look at the two figures in the original photo, this lady here is actually sitting in a wheelchair, and they initially thought about using that for the front cover, but I think they thought it was maybe a bit too controversial. But yeah, really, really good. If you don't know Suede then, their singer, Brett Anderson. On guitar on this album, they had Bernard Butler. Absolutely fantastic guitar work on this album. Before Bernard Butler, it was Justin Frischman. She was dating Brett Anderson at the time. She left the band, Bernard Butler came in, but when she left, she went and formed Elastica, another Britpop band. You had Matt Osman on bass. Matt Osman, funnily enough, is the brother of Richard Osman. For those in the UK who'd know Richard Osman from the quiz show Pointless, so it was his brother on bass. Then Simon Gilbert on drums. I think it's really interesting to find out that Simon Gilbert was introduced to the band through their then manager, or their early manager, who's the world famous actor and comedian Ricky Gervais. So he managed Suede for a short time, and by all accounts he was described by Suede as a freaking rubbish manager. I think they think he's a good comedian, but maybe not such a great manager. And I know that he's always been a lifelong fan. So yeah, that was the early lineup of Suede. But yeah, probably my favourite of their albums. Their first album, kind of really dark lyrics, kind of post-punk, really heavily influenced. I think their look was really heavily influenced by Roxy Music. Brett Anderson has always been kind of compared, his vocals kind of compared to David Bowie. But they've got a bit of the Smiths in there as well. But yeah, really, really good stuff, really catchy guitar pop. So the next album from 1994 then was Dogman Star, and this is probably their most critically acclaimed album. I think it's a much more ambitious album. There's a lot more kind of brooding ballads on this one. It's not quite so indie pop. I really like the photography. And the inside, We Are the Pigs is really good. This Hollywood Life, The Asphalt World. But as much as I like this one, I really like the front cover. I think it really sums up the sound of the album. Said a lot darker, but it wouldn't be one of my favourite Suede albums, though it is a good one. So I really like this. I think this is maybe their most commercial album coming up. I think this is from 1996. But yeah, there's so many great songs on here. Again, a lot more poppy, this one. They've got Neil Codling on keyboards now as well. By this album, Bernard Butler had left, so there'd been friction at the end of Dogman Star between Bernard Butler, their guitarist, and the rest of the band. And I think they seen him as a bit of a square. I don't think he was into drinking, he wasn't into partying. So he actually left by the end of their second album, and Richard Oakes would be their guitarist for the rest of Suede's time. But yeah, Trash is an absolute beauty of a song. Film Star, Beautiful Ones, The Chemistry Between Us. Yeah, another really, really good album. I think this went to #1, this one. But for me, probably their most commercial. I really like it. It's really good. So then they changed sound again. And when's this one? 1999. And this is Head Music. A little bit more electronic. They've tried to kind of change the sound a little bit. I think this is a horrible cover. It's like such a lazy 90s cover. But I do like the album. Electricity is a really good song. The opening song. She's in Fashion. Sounds very Let's Dance Bowie. What's a Unipack? But yeah, the worst thing about that's the cover. I do like the sound of the album, but maybe not as catchy as coming up. So the next album then, Suede, A New Morning. So there's a bit of a change to this one. I believe that Neil Codling, the keyboard player, was suffering from fatigue, chronic fatigue, after all the touring and all that kind of thing, and he'd left them for this album. They changed producer as well. And initially started with John Leckie, who'd produced the Stone Roses debut album, and I think they did a couple of tracks with him, and then they switched again to Stephen Street, who had previously produced the Smiths and Blur's albums. But I really like this. I believe that at the time it got really poor reviews, but you know, I think it's really good. It's more conventional. It's not as dark and brooding as a lot of the other Suede stuff. This is more like a kind of conventional rock album. They did away with all the electronics from Head Music, the previous one, and it just sounds like a more straightforward, like I said, rock album. It's probably the least Suede sounding album, but that's not to say it's not a good album. I really like it. Beautiful Loser, Positivity. So the opening track, Positivity, really sums it up. It sounds more wistful. It sounds more hopeful. It's definitely a more positive album. Like I said, that's kind of summed up in the name of the opening track. But yeah, I really like it. Again, how bad's that album cover? It's so poor, especially when you think of how cool the first two album covers were. So yeah, again, a really lazy cover, I think, in my opinion. Just this kind of CD with this big splodge here. It just doesn't tell you what the album's about. It's not representative of the music, like the first two Blur albums especially were really representative of the music. It's just, again, lazy. It looks lazy on the back as well, but the music is good. I don't think Suede liked this album, but well, they certainly didn't, because they broke up not shortly after this was released, and they didn't release anything again until 2013 when they released Bloodsport. And I think I like this album cover, and this kind of shows what the music was about, and it's kind of gone back to those early kind of lustful sexual lyrics that Brett Anderson liked to use in his songs, kind of dark, brooding lyrics. Neil Codlin's back on synthesizers, but yet they'd taken a hiatus before they released this. But yeah, another good album, a good return to form, but then they really returned to form with Night Moves. This is, is this 2016, I think? Yep, 2016. And for me, this one was like a real return to form. It sounds more like Dogman Star. It's very cinematic in its scope. It sounds like, you know, there's lots of orchestration. And a funny thing about this is recorded on 45 instead of 33 like the other ones. And if you play it on 33, the opening sounds like the Jaws theme, which kind of ties in with that cover of the lady sinking into the sea. But yeah, play it at the wrong speed and it's almost like you're listening to the Jaws theme tune. Nice artwork again on the inside as well, but again, really good album. So the next two albums, The Blue Hour and Autofiction, are again both critically acclaimed albums. I don't have either of them yet, but you know the problem collecting vinyl. There's so much good stuff out there at the moment that you can't collect it all. You know, 1 minute you're going down one rabbit hole, and then when that's kind of exhausted, you're straight down another one. So I will get round to getting Blue Hour and Autofiction at some point, but until I do, I'm going to just keep enjoying these Suede albums. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, big congratulations to Jack at Vinyl Martini. Go check out his channel and help him get up to 600 subs. And until the next time, see you later.